Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on April the 12th of 2018. I'm Nick here with Chris. We got manga to talk about this week.
We do, and
lots of crazy stuff actually happened this week in manga. I was trying to summarize it all in a little tweet to fire out, and I was like, there are some weird chapters this week, weren't there?
Very emotionally charged set of chapters this week in my mind, and there's plenty to talk about in that. But speaking of talking, Nick, and there being a lot of that.
Yes.
You know that position
we do this for 2 hours at a time each week, yes.
Well, this is different than that. This is a tangent to something that's happened to me at work.
Oh, not a tangent. Okay.
Yeah, well, see, we do this from time to time. So there's that situation that exists when you work in any kind of like retail or service industry, anything where you're stuck in a position, like you're stuck in a spot, and somebody, I'm not going to try to, stereotype it, but somebody, maybe a little bit on the older side, has found somebody who is stuck in one spot and wants to talk to them a lot. So we are showing Chappaquiddick, Nick. And if you don't know what Chappaquiddick is,
that's the Kennedy movie.
Yes, exactly. Well, one gentleman is going to see it because he was 19 when it happens. And I know that because he told me that 7 times.
7 times?
7 times throughout the day, he told me that he was 19 when Chappaquiddick happened. And he would continue to tell me about how Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, got away with manslaughter. And I'm like, that's cool.
So he has strong feelings about this, does he?
I'm like, that's cool. So 1 for the movie then? And he stood there after getting his ticket. For every person who came up to the movie afterwards.
Are you seeing Chappaquiddick? I was 19 when that happened.
Better than that, he would stand next to them, wait until they got a ticket for Chappaquiddick, and he'd say, they used to ask Bobby Kennedy about his run for presidency. Would he ever run for president? And he'd say, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And nobody would laugh because it's a weirdly dark joke being thrown at you by a person you don't know. So they'd kind of be like, all right. And they'd go on by. And then he'd turn to me after they left. And he'd be like, they must have been Kennedy supporters. And I'm just like, no, they're just strangers in a line who are being accosted with weird humor.
Sir, do they have very prominent wrinkles and white hair? No, they probably don't remember when this happened.
No. Well, that was the thing too. Is he's like, you're only gonna get my people in here, the baby boomers, and then like 2 30-year-olds came in to get sick, and he's just like, they must have been Kennedy supporters. I'm like, is everything that just disagrees like?
They were Kennedy supporters from the time that they were a twinkle in their daddy's eyes.
I like to think like he went up to get a soda afterwards, and like, you want Coke or Pepsi? He's like, Coke. No one would ever want Pepsi. Someone behind him's like, I like Pepsi. He's like, they must be a Kennedy supporter. Only a Kennedy would want a Pepsi. It's like, what? What logic is this? So after 30 minutes of that, he finally decided to go into his movie. And then he treated me to an encore performance after the movie let out, and he was waiting for his taxi to show up. So,
that movie must have been made by Kennedy supporters.
Oh, he loved it. He loved the movie. He's like, they really got it. They didn't spare an inch in showing that Bobby Kennedy was convicted of got away with manslaughter. I'm like, come on, man. I'm stuck here.
Oh boy, oh boy. You gotta be thinking, like, the thing is that history tends to, reflect very differently on people than, what you remember about them if you were a contemporary of them. So the Kennedy family is, considered one of the more, like, beloved fixtures in American life. And, a lot of it, I'm sure, has been affected by the way that both JFK and Robert died. So should just be like, must be a case. I was like, what?
Well, it's
point to see the movie about the greatest controversy in the Kennedy family.
Yeah,
so.
it's like, it's not even as though like you would go into it like maybe this is the movie that redeems Bobby Kennedy. Like unless they were like he was secretly Superman and he tried to save everybody in there. It was actually a third party that was in the car to begin with, having an affair with their wife or whatever. It's like there was no good way in. Sorry, did someone in our chat just ask if JFK is dead?
Yes.
He's like one of the most infamous dead people out there, like deadenings.
He's one of like what, three presidents who have died in office. I think it's
four.
It's four.
It's
FDR
four,
died,
and then
FDR, William Henry Harrison, and then of course Lincoln and JFK.
Wasn't Garfield also killed in office?
Oh gosh, that was the thing. Is like I always feel like there's one that I'm forgetting. But,
Presidents who died in office. 5. It's William Harrison, Lincoln, Warren Harding, FDR, and JFK.
Harding. All right. Anyway, let's talk about some manga, why don't we?
Let's do it.
We can do that thing. That is what the show is titled, sort of. Yes.
That's what we do. On a weekly basis, we recap the manga.
That sounds like something a Kennedy supporter would do. All right. Let's do it then. Let's talk starting about My Hero Academia. Chapter number 178, The Woman Called La Brava. As with a few of the recent chapters, before we get into the main action of this chapter, we get a little bit of cutting around to just various people preparing for the festival. We start off with the beauty pageant subplot. With Kendo, she's all dolled up for everything. I kind of appreciate that she has basically the same hairstyle as always. Didn't bother to change that. But she is wearing like the most beauty pageant red carpet of dresses. It honestly makes me a little uncomfortable that she's wearing like this much exposed upper body dress. I hope that there's a lot of tape on that dress. Seriously. And then like Nejire just kind of comes by. It just kind of randomly wanders in while what's his face, the stupid asshole in Class 1B is like, what are you doing getting all dolled up or whatever.
Is his superhero name Dick Basket? Because I feel like it should be. That'd be a great superhero name. Come save us, Dick Basket. He's like, look at the stupid trouble you got yourselves into.
You have anyone's powers that you can absorb so that you can actually be useful? Nope. Nejire comes in and she's wearing like actual casual clothing. So it's just a t-shirt and a skirt. And Dick Basket also just greets her somehow in a very arrogant way. Because he's just got that stupid shit-eating grin on his face and he shouts it when she comes in. But so Nejire and Kendo are just kind of like exchange like compliments, basically, good luck to you too. And then that weird eyelash girl comes in.
Excuse me, Nick. Her name is Babimi Kenranzaki. Let's get it right.
Oh, okay, sure. So anyway,
Babimi Kenranzaki is going to be an important character, Nick. They wouldn't introduce her for nothing.
Her eyelashes are literally like 2 meters long. It's crazy.
I love that her eyelashes enter the frame before she does. So like someone's just talking and you just see them enter in the frame. They're like, what? Oh, hey, Babimi.
God. I don't understand. Standards of beauty have changed in the My Hero Academia universe is all I'm saying.
Eyelashes are in, Nick. Tits are out, eyelashes are in. That's all that matters now. How big your eyelashes? Girl, your eyelash is thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
Mirio, meanwhile, is on the way to the festival along with Eri and Aizawa. He kind of goes over the program, so we actually get like a schedule briefly. Then we see that Hatsume is in quote-unquote peak condition. She doesn't have as much dirt smeared on her. I'll give her that.
It's a broad improvement. Looks
like she could have really used a lot of sleep, but well. And then finally a little conversation between Toshinori and Midnight. And basically Midnight's just like, he's going to get kind of close. I wonder what he could be up to. And then we come back to the fight scene. Deku is still beneath the I-beam at the start of everything, but he kind of drops down from his perch. And I think he tries to use the I-beam to kind of brace himself when he lands, and it doesn't really work out so well. He's lucky that it didn't crush him, honestly. And then he launches himself after Gentle, using the same crane that Gentle catapulted himself away from. And then he is like, okay, I need to watch closely. Thus begins the sequence that I love so much about this chapter, because it's great. He watches Gentle as he, is bouncing through the air towards the ground. And of course, Deku goes straight after him. And so basically, as he gets ready to prepare another air blast, Deku remembers all the places that Gentle has been bouncing around from, and then uses them to launch himself around Midnight. Gets ready to fire an air blast. Gentle summons a shield with his elastic powers, and he fires around it into another pocket that was right behind him and deflects it into him. It's so cool. It's like the coolest thing that Deku has literally ever done.
Yeah, it might well be.
I'm serious. This is awesome.
It's an extremely cool sequence here.
And this is only like the first half of what happens in all of this, because now we get character moments. We get a flashback from Arawa's perspective, because she realizes that, Gentle's determination to succeed at this point, the fact that he's put his beard and soul on the line and all of this, that's basically getting him into deeper trouble, because he can't just run away now. He's going to have to keep on trying to move forward. And so she remembers back to her childhood, first of all, to when she was in middle school, and she confessed to a boy that she liked. And he was like, yeah, but she's a weird stalker. I'm not into that. She's a real creep, which caused her to become this tremendous shut-in for, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how long. She's clearly much older after this point, because she's spent so much time hiding by herself in the dark that she has literally permanent circles around her eyes. And then one day while she was just being a shut-in, she discovered Gentle on the internet, and she refers to him as my light. He provided this kind of sense of hope and purpose to her. And then we get the little bit where she showed up on outside his door one day, followed by a bit of a montage of them spending some time together. And during this, there are little moments where she's very self-conscious about the dark rings around her eyes. First, she's thinking to herself, I hope that he doesn't think that they're gross. And then one day, when he sees her trying to wipe them away, he instead shows up after having used some magic marker to put dark rings around his own eyes, and is just like, hey, what do you think? I think that we'll make a good team this way. It's so sweet.
It is a very sweet one. And, this is, 3 pages long, but it's enough to create a really kind of compelling backstory for this character, because it hits fucking hard when they just show you, like, this shot of, these kids talking about her love letter, and they're like, I've never even spoken to her, and she writes me like an entire love letter, and it's got all these details in it that's clear that she's been stalking me. She's such a weirdo, and she's just like, I didn't believe in anyone else. I locked myself away. I spent all my time on the computer. I thought about killing myself. And you're just like, Jesus! And then she's like, oh, and then I found something to believe in, and something to, someone to help me, like, kind of live my life in a better direction. Mm-hmm. And
he accepted her.
And he was kind to her, and he was, he didn't want her to feel shy about her own things. So he was like, oh, I'm going to put, these marks under my eyes too. It's just like, oh, fuck, man.
And then Deku's like, "You're going to jail."
And Deku's like, "You know what? Jail's too good for you, crack." And you're like, "Oh, oh!" I don't like Dark Deku.
Darku. And then we get an explanation of La Brava's quirk, love, because she says, "I love you, gentle." And all of a sudden he gets this massive power boost because upon uttering the word love, the person she loves most receives a temporary power boost. The deeper the love, the stronger the boost. And when it activates in moments of crisis, the target grows dozens of times stronger. And Gentle just launches himself upward. He's got all this steam wafting off of him as he sends Deku flying. He looks so cool.
Yo, and he has the best fucking line too. He's like, "I prefer not to resolve matters by force." Just stands up, flips him over. He's like, "Which is why I always edit this part out." And I'm like, that's such a badass line where a dude who makes YouTube videos of his crimes. This is so cool. He like fucking went gear second on us.
Oh man. So he aims a chop at Deku's neck to knock him out. And he's just like, "Sorry about this, Izuku Midoriya, but in the end, love always triumphs." And then Deku's like, "I blocked it!" And he's got another air blast ready to go, pointing it over his shoulder. And he just says, "I've fought plenty of people stronger and faster than you, and I haven't lost yet." This was a fucking awesome chapter.
This is a very cool chapter. I'm really surprised that the end of it too was, because I feel like you could have easily just ended it on that line from Gentle 2, or just him be like, "Which is why I always edit this part out." But no, I like that. La Brava's quirk is essentially that love-based power up we see in everything else, given actual like mechanical form, like it's literally her quirk. So I think it's kind of cool for that. And they continue to build upon this relationship between La Brava and Gentle that makes it such a dynamic and unique relationship in Jump. This is just, it's unlike other characters in this series and a lot of other series in Jump in general. It further like just sits in my mind of like, oh god, I hope they do more Gentle than just this arc, because he's such a great fucking character.
Oh man.
It is a very good chapter. I'm super excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I cannot believe that this, little distraction arc, the school festival and Aries going to be happy, has turned into something this cool, honestly.
One of the coolest moments in this series.
I'm way more into Gentle than I ever was into Overhaul, so... Oh, boy. All right. Okay. Let's go on to Food Wars Shokugeki no Soma. It's chapter 258, Super Specialty, which is like, that's like, like a trading card tier or something like that. You got your rare, you got your super rare, then you got your super special rare, and you got your,
Mythic
secret rare, you got your secret rare. You got your ghost rare.
Ghost rare, where I'm like, fuck, how many goddamn rares are there? They're like, well, you can get maybe one uncommon per pack. There's every so often you get a dud pack that's all commons. What are you going to do? I'm like, I fucking hate this.
Didn't they do something where they said if you get, you might only get a rare. They eventually did a thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they were like, if you get a pack that has a higher than rare in it, it will also have a rare in it. It's like, that's so weird.
It's one of those things. Look, I think my favorite card game at this point is Hearthstone, because it literally has built into it a pity timer where if after 40 packs you haven't gotten a legendary, you will guarantee get a legendary in the next pack. You're like, oh, thank God.
I think most mobile games have some version of that where it's like, here, we'll give you. I think they refer to it as a pity poll.
Yeah, pity timer is what I hear it called to in Hearthstone.
All right. Okay, so Food Wars. Last time, someone was getting ready to present his appetizer for judgment, and everyone was like, what the fuck? This time, we begin with a flashback, and I kind of like the way that we've been getting kind of more and more details about the flashbacks to this training session or preparation session with Erina, Soma, and then Megumi, Takumi, and Ishiki. Ishiki, who apparently did nothing during the whole thing.
I think he just stood there.
I'm wearing a loincloth. You're welcome.
I think he just stood there the entire time. I was like, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Like he's just going off getting a drink. Ha 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 ha. Those kids. Ha 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 ha. They're like, we're in big trouble. Help us, senpai. Ha 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 ha. You silly kids.
But we do get some information from this point where Erina is like, hey, you know, if you end up having to do the appetizer, you can make a pâté de campagne, which I'm sure I mispronounced 4 different ways. I don't know French. So, Soma vaguely recognizes this, and she explains the whole premise of it to him, and he's like, oh, okay, I got you. So it's kind of like corned beef then. She's like, no, it is absolutely not.
I had to do, because I lost the podcast bet on the Super Layers Brothers podcast last year, so I had to do a training session with my cousin Tommy, who's like, big into physical fitness. He's a gym teacher, lifts all the time. And for whatever reason, I cannot tell you why, I decided to make my breakfast that day a can of corned beef and hash that was like 89 cents at the grocery store. Looked like pure dog food. And I ate half of it. And I was like, this was such a mistake. Why did I do this? This wasn't a part of the bet. I'm just make bad decisions.
Oh, it's awful.
You're just like, oh, I'm grossed out now. This chapter is all about delicious meat. Now I'm grossed.
But there's still, some disagreement between Erina and Soma after this point. So, Erina's trying to lecture him, and he still says we still haven't decided who's going to make the appetizers. Who says it's going to be me? And she's like, all right, then I'm going to make dishes, and they'll force you to realize that I'm going to make the main course. So I do appreciate that at the very beginning of this whole thing, we just got they literally could not decide who was going to make the appetizer and who was going to make the main course. So they have to do rock, paper, scissors at the very beginning of it. But we've gotten some that says, okay, they weren't just arguing about this for 12 hours. They at least came up with a skeleton plan and some idea of what they're going to do. Which apparently Soma has been planning to fuck up this entire time.
Yeah, there was a plan, but Soma had a secret backup plan that was just fuck everything. I want to fight you too.
And Erin's like, what essentially happens in the rest of this chapter, we'll go over in more detail. Essentially what happens is Erin is like, we had a plan. Why did you do this? And Soma basically says, well, it's too late now. I've already fucked up the plan we had. You have to go with mine.
You have to now be better than mine.
So.
Or we lose stupendously.
And it'll be your fault. So all the judges are shocked, except for Azami, who looks kind of evilly triumphant, I think. It's one of those weird looks that you can give someone that's a mixture of disgust, disdain, and also happiness. You're so happy with how so much someone has fucked up.
I think
he says, you call this an appetizer?
Which is true. It is just a giant piece of meat on a bone.
It's not giant. It's corn on the cob sized.
That's giant in my mind. Look, I have fantasized in my life, about one day getting one of those giant turkey legs in a Game of Thrones or something like that and just feasted upon it. They had them at Hershey Park. I could easily get one. I haven't yet, and I'm kind of holding off the hope that one day woolly mammoths come back and I kill one and I get to have a giant husk of woolly mammoth leg or something like that. It's just a visual I live my life for, Nick. All right? Stop judging me. I can hear you judging me.
So it's this little just kind of bone with meat on it, and it calls to mind, the caveman slabs of meat, which are directly referenced multiple times throughout this chapter. You take the bone with the meat on it, you put it directly over the fire. And everyone's like, it's caveman food. There's no way that's an appetizer. Even Rindo is like, Hey, listen up. You, appetizers are supposed to be more like, you know. Which I love, one, her way of putting that, and two, that everyone's like, who the fuck are you to lecture him on the proper way to make an appetizer?
Well, like they're like, why are you lecturing him? Shut up. Let them blow it.
But of course, Soma is like, what did I do? What do you mean, what did I do? I made a pate de campane appetizer. What's the problem here? And Megumi and Tsukumi are both like, God damn it.
Fucking, you son of a bitch, cock-sucking asshole, Soma. You son of a bitch.
And everyone essentially assumes, oh, that asshole. He's so determined to take on Tsukasa directly that he's ignored everything that's going on. He's gone off the rails. So Courage says, like, okay, well, even if he fucked up, we have to taste it. And she observes, like, oh, okay, yeah, there's beef, thin slices of beef wrapped around this pate on the inside. But even if it was made like a cartoony leg of meat. And then she tastes it, and it's as if she's the big rack of meat being burned while Soma turns her. I know for a fact that there is a fetish of this. I'm not glad that I know about this fetish, but I know it is a fetish.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is not the first time I've encountered a woman being put on a spit roast as, like, a sexual fetish, so...
A literal spit roast, by the way, not the sexy kind. So,
Nick, this is also a sexy kind.
It's a different sexy kind, yes. Yeah. Anyway, it's apparently good, as all the food in Shokugeki no Sama is. He explains that he used yakiniku sauce for it. Even store-bought yakiniku sauce has a great balance of soy sauce, mirin, garlic, and ginger. It makes a good solid base for a marinade. And I just took it and adjusted it with a bunch of different things while using the Kiri or to taste test to make sure it worked properly. I like how Erina just has no response to this. She's
like, I acknowledge it. She's like, whatever. You fucking stupid asshole. Fucking stupid ass giant leg of meat asshole.
But by this point, they've only tasted the outer part of the dish. Because when they bite into the whole thing, it's as though a mellow yet aromatic geyser of savory umami flavor suddenly bursts through. What the result of all of this is that Courage and the blonde one have suddenly been stripped down to their underwear because this dish has set off Azami's gifting. He can't deny how good it is. Even he thinks that it's good. But, Azami is not shaken by this. He even compliments, like, hey, this actually brings to mind Kojiro Shinomiya, with the way that the vegetables are used in order to, bring out all the dish's overall flavor without losing its elegance and refinement. And Soma explains that he basically combined his two specialties that he had shown Erina in the previous chapter in their planning session and improved upon them. He calls this Countdown Caveman Meat, uppity brat style. An even greater than my new and improved Yukihira recipes. It's true Yukihira cooking.
So, I want to point something out here that I find interesting. So, we know that Azami did the gifting, and it caused them to lose their clothes. If you look at Azumi in this one panel, you can see she is wearing a towel over her bottoms. And if you look at the other dude bros, you can see they're nude throughout the chapter. Apparently, his gifting doesn't make you to strip. It erases your clothes from existence. Gone. They haven't put clothes back on. She's resigned.
They disintegrated.
She's resigned herself to, like, I'll just have to wear a towel now because my clothes have fucking been obliterated, apparently. Like, what happened to them? Did they eat their clothes?
Apparently, what happened was all those, imaginary panels where it's like my clothes are being disintegrated off because it smells / tastes so good. Apparently, that actually happened to them. I
don't know if I'm more scared that that's the reality or that they're unintentionally eating their clothes because this food looks so good and they're just like, it's quasi-edible. And like they wake up and they're just like, why does my mouth taste like denim? It's a scary proposition.
Even so, Azami is undeterred by this. He's like, okay, this is good. Yeah, with a dish this complex will be nearly impossible to balance properly. However, with correct guidance from the divine tongue, it has been indeed elevated to a level worthy of being called a specialty. And everyone's like, holy shit, he actually admits that it's as good as Tsukasa's dish was. That's amazing. But then he's like, Rindo's appetizer took Tsukasa's already impressive main dish and boosted its flavor by an order of magnitude. You, however, have simply presented a main dish during the appetizer course. It was the worst choice you could have made, completely destroying the flow of a course meal. No matter how close to 100 points this individual dish is, as part of a larger course meal, this is worth nothing.
And he drops his fork. It feels like a dramatic fashion. Like, clank!
I don't know how his fork managed to land that way directly underneath his hand when he's holding his hand palm up, but he did it. So
that's what's so impressive about it. That's Zombie's true specialty, slamming forks.
I do like the direction this is taken, because we were kind of guessing the whole time, like, oh, Rindo is going to fuck something up because she's upset with the way things are being done, or there's discord within her heart, and so that will throw off Tsukasa's dish. Nope. We're supposed to believe that the opposite has happened. So
it is still weird because they still did tease something there. So I'm curious what that was supposed to amount to.
I imagine that if she was completely on her game, then maybe they still wouldn't be able to have won this. Like, she still did like her job, but they didn't both go above and beyond, maybe. Which is what Soma essentially says they have to do. Because everyone's like, Soma, how could you be so selfish? And Eren is like, eventually like, what do you think you're doing? We're supposed to work together as a team. And Soma's like, all right, listen, Nakiri, I'm serious when I say this. I want to win this Team Shokugeki really bad. Then why'd you do that?
I want to note something I really liked as well. And that is, after Azami kind of slaps the deal down, he's like, you just fucked this up and it's worthless. It's Azon who's the first to be like, hey, I know Yukihiro gets rash, but has he ever been thoughtless? And basically the entirety of like their team that were kind of defeated by members of like that direct Soma trio kind of all seem to be quietly acknowledging there must be something at larger work here. I do like the sign of respect that seems to send through, that they weren't immediately just like, ha ha, Soma messed up, ha ha ha, or anything like that.
In particular, the three people who were defeated by Soma in the past, Azon, Kinokuni, and Some, are the ones who are like, there's more to this. Like, he cares too much about winning to do that, basically. And Soma explains that when he tasted Tsukasa's dish a bit ago, it was really, really good. And hey, those dishes that you made for me last night, they can't touch it. And Aries like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he says, because none of them were your specialty. If we're going to beat him, we need not one, but two specialties chock full of every last ounce we've got. If we can't put together a course with two dishes of that caliber, we're going to lose. You think you can make a better main dish than me? Well, it's time you proved it. If you can't outdo me, you lose. In a way, that makes this a shokugeki between you and me. So show me what you've got. Make me a specialty with everything you have, a super specialty to beat a specialty, a super secret ghost specialty to beat a super secret specialty. This is cool.
This is extremely cool. I like this twist. I like that this is, on one hand, this is very quintessential Soma, where he is like a self-centered asshole about this stuff. But it also puts a cool twist on this where it's still kind of putting back to what was kind of the forefront of this series, like sort of original setup, which is Soma and Erina, and turning this into a friendly Shokugeki kind of between them and his trying to like push her to a new level. Part of me does wonder, is like, hey, Soma, didn't you think to have maybe mentioned this at least at the start of the contest? Because you took all the time cooking that. You said anything she's going to make now is going to suck. So she's got to start all over. Holy shit.
Jeez, I hope that Tsukasa and Rindo and Soma all made their dishes really quickly.
Yeah, they're like, you have 13 minutes to make your new specialty, Erina. She's like, it's grilled cheese with 7 kinds of cheese. One of them's Cheese Whiz. I had no time. I panicked.
She's like, she just takes the dish that she already had and is like, grab some hot sauce.
Just dumps honey mustard on it. You're like, here you go. He's like, this isn't going to work. She's like,
wait a minute, hang on. And she like grinds up a cinnamon brown sugar Pop-Tart over it.
I mean, she just grabs the plate Soma served them, like spins it behind her back, and is like, here's my dish. A bone meat pate with several bites taken out of it already. They're like, this is very avant-garde.
I admire the boldness.
They're like, I want to see where this goes. But no, I like this twist. I think this is a very cool idea, and I think it's going to make for an interesting development going forward. I'm really intrigued to see what actually happens here when we get to see Erin's specialty at work here.
This really feels like the point where like the real... It seems like the final realization of, you know, the clash of ideals between Azami and the, you know, original Totsuki Institute. Yep. Because, you know, this is, you know, achieving, you know, brilliance through competition, you know, the grinding the stones up in order to make diamonds that we established so long ago. Because he's clashing with Erina, Soma's going to force her to get better. And so, yeah, it looks like it's all going to be coming together in all this. Look forward to the next chapter. Okay, let's move on now to Dr. Stone.
It's time to get stoned!
Chapter Z equals 53.
Stone, 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 stone. Stone. You can carry on, Nick. I'm just going to keep doing the Brock Lesnar theme song in the background. Get some Jimmy John stapled to my back.
Split open someone's skull again, you know. Z equals 53. Hard Knocks Crafting Club. Last time, of course, through the efforts of Chrome and, oh gosh, I always forget this guy's name. Old Man Craftsman. I'll remember it later.
Kaseki.
They made a hydroelectric power plant with a water wheel.
Kaseki,
yes. Old Man Kaseki. And so Senku's like, okay, well, we're not done actually doing all the stuff for this yet because, look, I mean, like, we've got, you know, the electric wires and it's constantly generating electricity. We need to actually, you know, store that. So they make batteries. They get a whole bunch of these bottles, fill them up with sulfuric acid, and hook them all up together. And he's like, hey, with this, we can stash electricity whenever we want. That is actually pretty simple. And Chrome's like, that was not simple. It was actually really intense to have to do that. All right, let's do it 5 more times. It's getting to the point where Chrome and Kaseki, who apparently still have not gotten to sleep after the 3 days making the water wheel, he's still working them hard, but eventually makes a battery from everything. And so Ginro, being Ginro, is just like, will this really actually store electricity?
Ah! I like that in the shot where he's considering that, Senku's just there, like a finger up his nose, like watching quietly, like, this is going to be funny as shit. Oh! Yeah, that was
yep, it was funny as shit.
That was hilarious.
But afterwards, Ginro is very relieved because this means he and Kinro don't have to churn the hand-churned generator anymore. And they're really relieved from this. And Senku's like, hey, you know, I didn't do this just to make your lives easier. You need to work elsewhere. And Kohak is like, yeah, let's go fucking train, you guys.
Spiky teeth and everything.
Then we cut away to more work that Senku is doing along with Chrome and Kaseki, who still haven't got a chance to lie the fuck down. But he's trying to make more gears for stuff, and he keeps on fucking it up. Which I like is a continuation of stuff that, you know, Senku knows everything to do in theory, but he would still be completely lost without these people who know how to make stuff by hand. He's just like, oh man, I broke another gear. God damn it.
God crap.
And Chrome and Kaseki, when they see the blueprints that Senku has drawn up, they get a bit of an energy boost from seeing it. They get it all working together. And yeah, they have this fully automated engine generator now as a result of everything with their puffer system, Mark III. And everyone's happy because now the entire village doesn't have to just be pumping shit constantly in order to make metal for everything. Which leads the chief to have the exact same reaction that Kohaku had earlier. It's like, now go stock up shit for the winter.
I guess it just runs in the family.
Yeah, the gleamy eyed. I get to be a slave driver gene. And they get a montage of people just doing shit. Because months pass in this chapter. They specifically say like 2 months pass after this point. There's a whole bunch of people, gathering food items, jarring things, and then making wine, which of course Kohaku and Ruri are put in charge of while wearing like the skimpiest clothing we've seen them in thus far. Because of course they are.
That's how you make wine, Nick. Gotta do it in like your underwear and shit.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can make wine.
Then it's up. They are trying to make light bulbs, and Senku's leading the process, and it's very, very delicate work. And Kaseki is so tired by this point that he keeps on accidentally breaking the glass. But he actually says something really, really cool, which is like, "Hey, life's gotten a whole lot rougher since you turned up, but also a lot more fun. With a few exceptions, everyone in this here village agrees." And there's just this tiny little bubble with Magma and his subordinate goes like the exceptions.
or the Foo, I think was his name, Mini Foo.
That's a cool little thing. It's like, hey, you've made our lives a lot better with all this. It's been hard work getting to this point, but it's cool. So
I also like when it kind of builds this idea of like this old veteran kind of crafter who's just like he's taxed by all this work. It's challenging him, but he also likes it because it's allowed him to experience and do crafting stuff that's pushed him to a level. Like it's that thing that kind of always is intriguing when those stories is kind of about like humanity, somebody skilled pushing themselves beyond their limits and how much that gives them value of life because of it.
You would have to imagine, like, if they were like 100 years after this point, the lore of, when Senku first came to this village, that Kaseki would be like one of these like legendary figures because he made all of these achievements possible. He helped to reinvent these absurd life-changing things. So. In order to actually properly make light bulbs, they do stuff with mercury in order to, vacuum out the air, which of course causes the air inside of the light bulb to not be as hot, which means it becomes less fragile so that they can actually do it properly. And lots of time goes by. Winter comes, it starts to snow, and they finally have managed to actually get light bulbs working, which, Chrome's like, oh man, I don't know. Should we actually call off the test of this? And Senku's like, nah, this is actually perfect timing. And they strung a bunch of the light bulbs up in this tree, and they make a Christmas tree because it's actually Christmas at this point. Everyone's like, oh, it took us a long time to get here. And he's like, no, we're actually right on schedule. And Gan's like, wait a minute, isn't today Christmas? And as if on cue, like there's just a silhouette of Santa and his reindeer flying across the sky. And I like to think it's not just a fancy visual, but no, obviously Santa Claus is still delivering presents.
Yeah, obviously he was somewhere safe when the event happened, and him and the reindeer are fine. They go around now giving presents to all the unstoned people.
All right, everyone, get into the bomb shelter.
Bad shit is coming. Two things. One, Kohaku, pants girl. Come on, it's gotta be so cold.
It's cold.
But two, I love that she still carries around the katana. Like it's just become like her thing. She's like, no, this is an extension of myself now. I'm never not using this.
That's basically it for the chapter. Everyone gets to have this little Christmas tree and stuff. I do like the little exchange where, because Guinness just says like, it's Christmas. And Senku's like, huh. What a coincidence. Against like, you liar.
Fucking bullshit. It does end also with Chrome realizing that if they have lights like this, then they could go actually spelunking in caves and start getting minerals that way. So that seems where we're going. That him, Gen, and Senku will go around looking for minerals and down all that.
So, good stuff.
Yeah, super solid chapter. Very fun. Looking forward to seeing where we go. Because I guess we got to be somewhat quickly getting to the conflict. Didn't they say it was going to be like when winter ended?
When winter ends. So if they're in Christmas, then of course they're at the beginning of winter. And they've got, like 2.5 months, I think? 3 months before winter ends. So,
yeah. So let's move on to We Never Learn. This is question 58. On a stormy night, a genius's heart isn't in X.
I have some problems with this chapter, but I'll wait for the end.
Okay. So the starting premise of it is that there's a typhoon gained intensity in the area, and because of that, they're kind of closing afternoon classes. Everything's going to be kind of closing up, and Yuega's thinking about like, oh, okay, so we'll have the afternoon off, all lots of time to prepare like study lessons and everything like that. And as he's leaving, he sees Fumino kind of staring outside, and she has a very preoccupied look upon her face. She seems to be deep in some sort of thought. So, he tries to kind of talk to her and, say like, oh, man, we should really get home. Any moment now, it's going to start like the rain. And she's like, oh, wait, no, actually, I'm going to go stop by inside this diner real quick. And so she runs over, and Yuega stays with her. He's like, you know what? I guess I'm hungry too, and let's see what's going on. And she's like, ooh, let's get this super awesome fucking like $35 sundae, apparently. Because he's like, it's 3,500 yen. I was like, I think it is like $35 or something like that. That's crazy.
That's got to be like gigantic.
Yeah. It has to cover like the entire table. But right before they'd order it, the waitress comes up and says that they're closing early because of the typhoon. So they have to leave, and we can see like a different selection of all these restaurants they probably tried to get to before they find it was closed. And they have to settle on eating cup noodles outside of like a convenience store. Yuega's just like, hey, what's going on? Why do you have a weird accent? Because she like starts going and like, this ain't cutting it. I was fixing to really splurge and really cut loose now. And like, Yuega's like, where did this come from? So she demands to swap cups with them so that they can try each other's different ones, and she enjoys it. And there's that moment of like, oh, she already used these chopsticks.
Kiss.
But it starts raining, so they have to use their umbrella. And, Fumino's apologetic because she's like, this is my fault. You wanted to go home earlier. But Yuega's like, I don't mind that. I'm just concerned. You seem like something's up today. And she says, oh, not really. It's just that my dad's home today, so I kind of don't want to go home. And there's just this moment of clear silence between them before Yuega just says, well, I guess we could look for somewhere to get out of the rain. And she says, no, I don't want to cause you any trouble. You're very kind. He's like, no, don't worry about it. But in that moment, of course, then their umbrella gets caught by the wind, shoots backwards, and then they decide to quickly find shelter, I guess, in the closest available place, which is a movie theater. So now they've managed to find shelter in a movie theater. They're going to see some really old movie. She's like, oh, it looks a little scary. You okay with that? He's like, yeah, sure. If it's not super scary. And there's just a picture of like a zombie. And he's like, oh, this is super scary. And I just like Fumino, who's just like munching on popcorn. She's just like, that person isn't wearing the makeup or something like that. And you're like, is she critiquing the movie as it's happening? She's just like, not solid enough. This movie made 20, 50 years ago, whatever, is not living up to my expectations. But then the power goes out.
2 stars.
Then the power goes out.
You imagine if We Never Learned stopped being about a harem romance and just became Fumino and Yuiga at the movies, and they give movies thumbs up and thumbs down.
And Yuiga is always super emotional. He's like, the newest Jumanji is so incredible. It's got action. It's got drama. It's got love. And she's just like, the video game cliches were too over the top. 1 star. You're like, wait, I thought she was the one who enjoyed literature. She seems to just hate everything. Like, she even hates good movies, too. Like, she's watching Dunkirk.
That's what it means to like literature, Chris, is to be a snob.
She's like, it's to hate everything. She's like, what's your favorite movie? She's like, I actually hate every movie I've ever seen.
What about... Really? What about, like, I don't know, fucking Star Wars?
She's
Cliche.
like, more like Star Wars. Boom.
Roasted.
What about Wonder Woman? Wonder Man. That's what I called it.
That doesn't even make any sense as a quip.
Wonder Woman. There we go. Boom. Roasted.
It's like
what about Avengers?
like
Meh-gers. She's like, you just use meh for everything.
Like Michael in that one episode of The Office.
Roasted.
Boom, roasted.
But then the power goes out.
Which is like the one episode of that show I've actually seen.
The power goes out, and I guess I go in and I tell them, like, hey, power went out.
It's like, did they forget to pay the power bill? There's a fucking hurricane outside.
Why is that your first thought? So yeah, I show up to let them know that the power will come back on in a moment, though. And, they're kind of in the darkness.
So, if you're going to fuck, use a condom. Thank you.
That's what I let them know. I'm like, be safe, kids. And, like, as soon as I get outside, it's just like, yeah, Storm's probably a Kennedy supporter. I'm like, fuck, why won't you leave? Didn't want them to see the truth. So, they're in the darkness. It's a little weird. So, Samina's like, hey, can we talk a little? So, Yuiga, because he has no game whatsoever, is like, sure, let's solve math problems. And she's like, I mean, it's not really what I meant by let's talk, but then Yuiga says, okay, well, how about you tell me about your father? You don't have to, of course, and she says, I can't, because even if I told you, you'd never believe me. And Yuiga says, okay, I see. Well, anyway, today's sure been a weird day, but we went around to all these restaurants and all these things that happened. Man, what a day. It is almost like a date, isn't it, Furuhashi? And she kind of has a little bit of a shy, blushing reaction. Eventually, the storm seems to pass. They go their separate ways, and chapter ends with a joke where Fumino's friends ask her, like, where would you go on a dream, like, date restaurant kind of thing? And Fumino thinks back to the moment she just had. She said, how about some instant noodles at the convenience store? And her friend's like, what? That's the chapter.
So, I will say, this is easily the best Fumino chapter we've gotten in months, if not ever. This was really good. I like that it's really telling that, Fumino would rather be out in a fucking hurricane than spend time with her father. That's how bad their relationship is. And we still don't know the details as to why. And I really like that what Yuiga does for her. And also, most surprising thing to come out of this chapter is that when he brings up the idea that they're kind of, it's like, I like that they're on a date, she doesn't immediately default to, oh no, I'm sorry, Rizu and Uruka. She just realizes, like, I guess it kind of is. Which indicates, one, a sign of just general maturity for her, and also that she might be more open to the idea of a romantic relationship with Yuiga, so potentially that part of their relationship can actually move forward. She has technically been part of the harem since the very beginning, and it's nice. The best parts of We Never Learned are when the relationships between the girls and Yuiga actually progress, and we're not just caught in the same cycle of everyone going around in a circle babbling like chickens with their heads cut off. So overall, this is a very good chapter. That said, the inconsistencies of hurricane closures very much bother me as a Floridian. That theater would not be fucking open because no one would be going outside to go to the fucking movies. No one would be bothering.
Speaking as somebody, Nick, who currently works at a movie theater, I have been told we are one of the last places to close if there is a weather-related emergency. And I have had to drive through snow to get to a movie theater because we are still open. It is true. Very few people come to the theaters that day, but we are one of the last places to close.
Now, that said, theaters tend to be pretty solidly built places. That's not the problem. It's getting to them that's the problem.
Yes. So. It is a very big danger to try to get to one of those in inclement weather. But there are some people out there just like, my house is boring. I want to do something. I'm going to risk a hurricane to get out to a fucking see Midnight Sun or whatever bullshit movie you're checking out.
And then the black screen when the power goes out. Power company must be a Kennedy supporter.
Goddamn Kennedys, the power consumption.
I curse you.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this chapter. I love this chapter, actually. I like that we got some more from Fumino, and, you know, we've had some smaller hints throughout the series that there's some sort of weird relationship between Fumino and her father. But this is the first one, I think, to really push it to the forefront. It's always been kind of like a small kind of tease in earlier chapters, and this is kind of the big thing. And there's definitely people I know who have been in a similar situation that have had such a rough relationship with their parents that they would do anything to not have to go home. They just hate that arrangement so much. And I like that we still don't know the full story to it. We just get enough to kind of get a sense. But I really also appreciate the way that this sort of whole ordeal was taken. You know, the reason why I like Yuega is because he shows himself in certain instances to be a really good person. And this is one of them where when he sees a friend in trouble, you know, he hears like, oh, you don't want to go home because you don't like spending time with your dad, or there's something about your dad being home that makes you uncomfortable, so you want to do anything else but that. All right, let's go find out what else we could do. And he does try to ask her what's going on, and when she kind of says like, nah, you wouldn't believe me even if I told you, he doesn't push it. He doesn't try to like prod. He's like, okay, well, anyway, today has been really weird and crazy and fun, hasn't it? Like, it's just a very responsible way to handle that situation. That's what makes me appreciate it.
Other than, you know, allowing her to wander around outside during a hurricane, that was still pretty bad.
It seemed like it was a pretty blasé hurricane. Everyone seems to be closing up for nothing there, Nick. Just enough to blow an umbrella sideways and all that, knock out the power.
That kind of attitude is why people die in hurricanes, Chris.
Nick, I watched that one Metacalypse episode where the hurricane was coming down, and Scrambles the Death Dealer didn't do nearly as much as people were worried about. I was like, did it take out half of Florida if I'm looking at the episode right? Super solid episode, though. Chapter. So it also was a good episode of Metalocalypse.
They just should have known to stand back because there was a hurricane coming through.
I was so bummed when he got eliminated from the Royal Rumble so quick.
Yeah. He didn't even get to chokeslam anyone, which was actually the right thing to do, honestly. One of my favorite moments in Royal Rumble history is when he tries to chokeslam Austin and Triple H. And they're just like...
Get the fuck out of here.
Good chapter. Week full of good chapters, honestly. Mm-hmm. The Promised Neverland, Chapter 82, Master of the Hunting Ground. So, in reaction to Luvis showing up and everyone not knowing what the fuck has happened to Zack and Pepe, the ultimate survivor, Zack and Pepe, Giselle basically decided to disobey Nigel's orders / wishes and is going to go and confront Bayon so that either Nigel will be forced to have to fight together with her so that they will try and survive, or she'll be the one to die protecting him as opposed to the other way around. Essentially, she's sick of people sacrificing themselves for her, and she's going to step up and do it instead. So she fires some bullets at Bayon, and he responds by rushing towards her, quickly chasing her down and nearly cutting her in half. But fortunately, Nigel is able to shoot some bullets and throw off his aim. And Nigel starts to chew her out as they like escape around a tree. And he's like, come on, this is a matter of life or death. Your emotions are getting in the way here. We need to prioritize the mission. We've done this so many times. So what the hell are you doing? And Giselle's like, well, you're currently the one who's not leaving me behind to die right now. So come on. You're the one who's basically acting on emotions as opposed to following the mission plan right now. So get over yourself. So they're left standing off across from Bayon, who says, hey, were you the two that killed Little Luce? And they're like, what? Yeah, you killed him. The whistle, there was the smell of gunpowder. So you used those toys to kill him and his subordinates, right? I love he calls them toys. That's I just like that little touch there. It's just like, oh yeah, you're fine. They're your little toys,
These adorable little things you have here.
And then he's like, oh, wonderful. He's like, I didn't think that you could actually do that. So, yeah, my subordinates have been killed. You guys must have been planning this, because you certainly didn't just figure out how to do this all in one day. And yeah, your friends, they put up a really good fight. It truly was remarkable. He holds up his freaking bloody ass glaive in one hand. So he actually says, hey, so how'd you find out how to kill us? How'd you acquire that knowledge? Someone must have been helping you. Someone must have told you. And that someone must be the leader of this rebellion. And he basically just flat out says, take me to your leader. So they're like, okay, so we need to lead him away from Lucas, at the very least. So like, okay, let's run away from him so that we can keep on doing this and lead him away from Lucas. And Lewis is like, okay, or Bayon rather is like, okay, slashes Jillian across the back and picks her up and says, so now I'm going to make you make a choice. Either I kill your friend or you give up your leader. So you have to choose between this girl's life and your leader's life. And Nigel takes a little bit to agonize over the decision. And then he realizes, I know what I have to do. Okay, hang on. I'll end your suffering, Jillian, and prepares to shoot her so that she will at least die quickly. But then Pepe appears.
Pepe! He's alive, Nick! Pepe lives!
He's got like one tiny part of his glasses still intact.
No,
on
Nick,
one eye.
He's always worn that stupid monocle.
Has it always been a monocle?
It's always been a goofy monocle thing.
I thought it was part of glasses. Okay. Anyway, he throws a smoke bomb. Poof! And Nigel grabs Jillian and they run the fuck away. And Pepe's like, I have a plan. And that's the end of the chapter.
So, what are the betting odds, Nick, that Super Survivor Zach has survived?
Pretty good.
I'll be...
go like 2-3 on that or something.
I think right now I am somewhat interested. I like certain parts of this chapter, certainly. I like that they have been able to, just with the raw emotion of it, made me start to give at least a slight amount of crap about Nigel and Jillian. It's not easy because, again, I still don't really know much about these characters. I've not spent that much time. But the situation itself has just kind of transpired to be one that's kind of easy to invest into. But I also like what they did with Lord Byron here, where he's just like, marvelous! You killed my subordinates! This is marvelous! You've accomplished something! I never thought you loser kids would be able to do this! This is splendid! Like, just a very haughty, douchey villain speech where he's just like, you killed my friends! That's marvelous! You're so triumphant! You're just like, god damn, this dude's fucking sinister as shit. And I do like how he actually just goes in and just, like, cuts Jillian in the back, like, just slices through her, immediately snatches her up and just starts squeezing her by the head. He's like, you can take me to your leader, or I crush your skull. Very, very sinister way of doing it.
Up to you.
So I dig that part of it, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly great chapter, but Promised Neverland has kind of hit this weird sort of, I don't know, after they killed Luce, it's just been kind of like diminishing returns with all the other conflicts. It's like, I just don't care about these kids. And meanwhile, Emma is just standing somewhere staring at Luvis while the two of them aren't moving while this is going on.
Yeah. So, I think it's super solid, though. I dig it. Excuse me. Let's move on, then, to the Seven Deadly Sins, chapter 262, The One Warped by Darkness.
Ooh.
So our chapter opens up with Derere kind of standing up as this entire crowd looks on to her. And the first real reaction we get is fucking Death Piercer, this fucking dickhead who's still around, who's like, oh, Father in Heaven, thank you for allowing me to avenge Denzel Sama with my own two hands. And he charges past Elizabeth, who, like, is calling out, like, wait, no, she's not here to fight. And he breaks his sword against Derere and just watches in there as she just walks past him without paying him any mind.
It's great.
Like, it's kind of sad because he was entirely motivated about avenging one of his comrades. And there was a moment where after the sword, like, cracks, that he's like, you can see him, like, kind of, like...
I have failed you!
But just like, God damn it, if Death Piercer doesn't have just a boatload of conviction. But Derere goes straight up to Elizabeth and says, I don't know where else to go. I felt magic. You know, Monsbet saved me, and now Estarosa's coming. And as soon as they say that, you know, speak of the devil and he shall appear. Estarosa's like, found you! And he slams down into it. And he's like, it doesn't get any better than this. And he summons a black hound, which is just a living giant dog of fire, a black fire that like runs around Elizabeth and Derere so frequently it creates like a fire spin tornado that locks them down. I
like the style of this. Like, there's no real point to it being a giant hound of fire. He could have just summoned a wave of fire in a circle around them, but he has to make it this devil dog thing that runs around them.
That howls as it does it too. It's like going like, ooh. Nick, do you remember Fire Spin back in the day?
Yes, and when I learned what the move actually did, I was like, wow, this is actually way less good than it was always made out to be.
Well, because back in the day, the opponent couldn't act while you used it,
yeah.
Which was fucking garbage. I sent a letter to Nintendo about that. They actually responded.
Really?
Well, I sent a letter to Nintendo because it was a Pokemon Stadium game, and a trainer used it against me, and it stun locked me. But I remembered Fire Spin only ever had 5 PP. So I was like, fine, you use it 5 times, and then I can kick your ass. And then I used it 6 times, and I sent them a letter. I was like, how can they do that? Fire Spin only has 5 PP. And they sent me a letter back. They're like, hey.
PP up.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, the trainer, may have used a PP up, but, sorry for the grief you felt. And I was like, thank you. Nintendo, you're all right in my book.
Also, ban him, please.
Yeah, I was like, fuck that. Yeah, kill him. I want his family to suffer. The goddamn Kennedy supporting Fire Spin using assholes. But Estarosa
should have used Rapid Spin.
But Estarosa sneaks into this fire and uses this opportunity to kind of have a conversation with Elizabeth and Derere in private. And he just says, I don't know how you
He's like, check out my ridiculous muscles. I don't have nipples.
He doesn't, actually. He says, I don't know how you managed to escape under my brother's watch, but I really lucked out this time. So glad to see you again, Elizabeth. And Derere, your commandment, please. Don't worry, I'll be sending you to join Monsbet soon.
Such a wonderful dick, this chapter. My favorite instance of it is coming up later, though.
Yeah. So Elizabeth says, I know that you're trying to gather the commandments to make Melodius the Demon Lord. I'm not going to allow that. Well, to be fair, she says that, and Estarosa's like, make Melodius the Demon Lord. I'll have you know that and then she's like, no, I won't allow it. Like, he was about to be like, I'm a total asshole who doesn't care about giving him the commandments at all.
I want to be the Demon Lord.
I clearly have my own interests at heart first. And she's like, no. So she
I won't let you be Melodius become the Demon Lord, I say.
So, like, Derere is like, let him finish his sentence. And she traps him in, like, this light ball called an arc and just fucking tosses his ass like a baseball. Like, he's just like, ah! Like, you see the fire spinning, like, typhoon that they were trapped in, and she hurls his ass into a fucking mountain like a mile and a half away.
And then he's just like, how rude!
Yeah, exactly like fucking Stephanie from Full House. How rude! Pops out and he says, yeah, well, if you're going to resist me that much, I'll be tempted to steal your will too. Even if it's a high-ranking demon, it's still impressive that he escaped. Oh, sorry, this is everyone else, I guess, saying it?
This is the angels that have snuck up on him.
Oh, that's right. They're like, oh, yeah, it's impressive he managed to break through her arc unscathed. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. And he turns around, and he sees Sariel and Tamiel, the two of the other archangels, the two that aren't Ludishel and the dead one.
Yeah, and he's like, so what happened to that straight-laced Ludishel? And what was the last one's name again? Mail! Oh, right, I killed Mail.
Yeah, it's such a great moment. Like,
it's such a dick!
It even has the giant sound effect of smirk. like he definitely said it, like, all right, I killed him. Their response, of course, is to blast him with a ton of holy energy. And they note that one of the archangels has as much strength as any two of the 10 commandments, so they can easily finish him off alone, because it's just math, Nick. If one archangel is strong enough to beat 10 commandments, and there are 2 archangels, that means there'd have to be 10 commandments to be able to stop this guy.
Oh no, Chris, I'm currently seeing double. 4 males. Or 4 Esterosis.
So he says, that's some big talk, flies by them, turns his hands into whirling buzzsaws, and slices them in half with encroaching fire darkness that swallows them whole. And he says, oh, I killed the strongest of the 4 archangels, so you really thought your pathetic excuses could beat me? You didn't even have time to show off your tornado and ocean graces. Ha. Huh. And then they explode into light, and they're like, then I guess we ought to show you our graces to avenge our fallen comrades. And the 2 of them are fine. They now have their, like, archangel wings and shit. Like, they basically just got rid of their fucking training weights, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still pretty confident in Esterosis' chances against these 2, considering how much he raffle-stomped them just now. I feel as though they're going to basically have to hold out until Ludashel or someone else comes along in order to assist them.
Ludashel, or maybe Elizabeth. I can't imagine. Like, part of me's also thinking, like, I feel like Zeldris or Meliodas himself had to be present for killing this guy. He's one of their brothers, and he's a complete shithead. Like, even amongst the bad guys, he's a shithead. So I keep feeling like there's going to be some extra twist into this, or
he'll manage to get away or something. Because the thing is that he already possesses multiple of the 10 commandments at this point. So yes. I don't think that at this point, for story purposes, that those are going to fall into the good guy's hands.
Does he have 3 of them now, or 4?
3 or 4, I forget how many.
He has Grey Walls, his own, and then Monspiet's, and I can't remember if he took a 4th one yet or not. But yeah, he has at least 3.
Yeah, several. Yeah. But yeah, this is a cool chapter, and I love how much of a horrible dick this Esteros is.
And it is a great one of just like, where's oh right, Male, and that's right, I killed him. Smash. Like, just the shittest eating grin he has.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we don't have One Piece this week, which means that we're pretty much gonna have a fairly quick episode of the podcast, because we're close on Black Clover.
Black Clover!
Ah. Page 152, Troublesome Woman. So, last time, all of the possessed elf people showed up, and Leona threw Asta and Zora through a wall to get them to safety, and she's going to buy them time to try and get them to escape, or, as she put at the end of the last chapter, kill all those people to make sure that they're no longer a threat. And most of the chapter is fighting. Lots of fighting. Leona is talking a big game to begin with. I like that she opens with, hey, it's 5 against 1. Do you still need a handicap? While she's bombarding them with fire lasers or whatever the hell her ability is. We cut to outside where Asta's like, we have to help her! And Zora's like, no, we're leaving. But Asta says, hey, we can't leave her. She's going to die. And Zora says, listen, if we go back in there without a plan, they'll kill us all. You don't have magic, so you couldn't tell how tough they actually are. And I don't really like that she saved my ass either. But right now, we have to make sure somebody survives all this. And the captain made that decision. Don't you dare waste her sacrifice. Pretty standard little speech for this kind of a situation, but I do like that you can tell that Zora does feel conflicted about this, despite how harshly he's talking to Asta about everything. We see a bunch of different magic getting used by all the elf-possessed people. There's a whole bunch of attacks that get launched at Leona, and it's starting to be so much that she's starting to get overwhelmed. Then Rill uses his paint magic to summon a giant fucking fist to punch her. And when she tries to blast it, Raya uses his space magic to port the fist through a hole in space so it punches her from the other side. And Marileona realized that on top of just having to fight 5 people, her reactions are starting to get slow. Her attacks aren't as powerful. And she looks up and realizes that Snow Magic Chick, that was useless during the tournament, is basically using this kind of weakening snowstorm thing. And she explains that she's putting the senses of everyone in the space to sleep except elves. I don't know exactly. It's weird that she has that very specific exception to it, but okay. The guy who was previously Reuben, part of the Crimson Lions, is now named Rosa. And Marileona is like, I at least want to kill you so that you can't cause any trouble while you're possessing one of the Crimson Lion Kings. And she like blasts out of this tomb of sand that he tries to imprison her in, rushes towards him, covered in fucking fire, going to punch him out. And then Raya just spaceports in front of her, draws a sword, and cuts through her samurai style. And he's like, see you, Lady Royal. And then she shoots a giant laser at him because she's not dead yet. And everyone's like, Jesus Christ, this fucking woman. She's not... Is she human? Is she really human? And Raya's just like, you sure are one troublesome woman. Sexist on top of everything else. What is wrong with you, dude? That's the chapter.
Okay, never mind. I was worried. For a moment, I thought that was Benjamin Benfunk as well. Ben Funk, sorry. And I was like, is his real name Reuben? And he bridges it to Ben?
No.
Yeah, but it's a different person. Because Ben Funk is also a member of the Crimson Line. To be clear. So I got confused. There's 2 dudes who look very similar on that. I don't know what to think on this chapter. I get it's super cool and that she's still fighting and you're just like, oh, wow. How crazy. I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't necessarily want her to die, and I don't think that's necessarily the tone the series wants to go with, but I don't know how this ends. Like I get
the impression that Zora's whole thing, we can't go in without a plan, is going to lead to he has to go in with a plan and grab her and get the fuck out of Dodge.
It's interesting because I feel like there still has to be a showdown with Yuno and Ast at some point here, because I think we saw and confirmed that Yuno is one of the people who's been taken over as well.
Yes.
So clearly they have to set up that so we can get a Yuno Asta fight somewhere in a distant to not so distant future. So I feel like that encounter has to happen at some point too. And I'm like, how does that happen? And the guy controlling Yuno doesn't just obliterate them on the spot.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
Guess we'll have to see.
We will.
It was a pretty decent chapter in my mind. There was not a single bad chapter this week, I don't think, and there were a lot of really good ones. So it was a good week for manga, despite the fact that we had no One Piece, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel weird. This is weird. Nick, how long has this episode been?
It's been very short. It's not even an hour and a half yet.
Nick, I'm uncomfortable with all of this. What do we do? Do we vamp? Do we find, like, do we talk about WrestleMania for another half an hour?
We could, talk about the chapter of One Piece that we didn't get this week. Yeah.
Oh, man, it was so cool when it turns out all the Straw Hats were ghosts all along.
From the very beginning, and Brooke was the only one who was alive.
Yeah, it turns out it was all just Laboon's dream. He just dreamt he met all the Straw Hats.
He was actually alone the whole time. No one ever came to see him.
Holy shit. Yeah, that was a dark-ass ending.
Hell yeah.
But I dug it, yeah.
And also Laboon was actually a comatose child staring at a snow globe.
It's just all, like, weirdness. It's just every weird twist we could throw in there.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out, actually, it was Bob Newhart waking up, and he just had a really bad dream. But then it actually turns out it was actually really purgatory all along, because the after credits were just a static shot on the beach with no bodies. That's a Lost reference. Like, the character in Lost literally said at the end of it, it's not purgatory, it's literally not purgatory. People are still confused by like a static image of a beach they use to give people a chance to breathe at the end of the episode. They're like, that is purgatory. They all died in a plane crash. All right, let's wrap.
What are our favorites this week? Favorite series and MVP.
I'm going to go with my favorite chapter as We Never Learned this week. I really enjoyed this chapter. I thought it was really sweet. I like that we got a good Fumino chapter. And if Fumino has to enter into the harem, which we kind of already knew she was, I'm glad this is the way we're kind of entering into it. With a connection to who she is as a human character as opposed to them just touching hands on the beach and some spark happening or something like that. This is a much better way to do that.
Hello, dog.
Scotia, shut up. Talking about pot. Talking about emotional series. Scotia, shut up. We're talking about We Never Learned. All right, okay, carry on.
My favorite this week was My Hero Academia. I liked the mixture of emotion and cool moments and action scenes that we got from this. It was really cool. Favorite character? I am going to go with Esterosa for being such a wonderful asshole during this chapter. I actually finally understand who this character is, basically, as a result of this chapter. So,
I think if we see it, I'm going to give mine to La Brava. Because I did not expect that character to twist my heartstrings in nearly the way she did so effortlessly. 3 pages, Nick. It was all it did to turn me into a fucking a simpering wuss for her. Like, oh, La Brava! Only victory and hope for you in the future!
You're so loving. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining us here on Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show normally on smashcast.tv/ReloadT and twitch.tv/ReloadT. Start around 7 to 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays every single week currently. For updates, you can follow us on Twitter. He is at ReloadT and I'm at Nick F. Time. And you can also follow the official podcast account at WMAR Podcast. Also, be sure to check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. Leave comments and ratings so that we can become kings of the hobby section and defeat the woodworkers.
Someone's got to stop them. Their reign of tyranny. Those Kennedy supporters. You all know it. It's true. They've been diehard Kennedy.
The plane was made of wood! If you have any feedback you want to send to us, ask us any questions for our Q&A episode, send us suggestions for our future manga recommendations, you can send all that stuff via email to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. We are currently working our way through Akatsuki no Yona for our current recommendation. If you want us to check out another series, send that to us via email. Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create all sorts of fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Also, special thanks to Steveman, our title artist. He has his own Patreon and Infamous Planet. And that'll do it.
Yep, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will catch you next time. I have nothing on my mind to end this episode out with. So
all hail women's champion Carmella.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.